whatever you can build, you can do. And you don't have to have it audited. You don't have to have somebody check to make sure you're doing what you say you're doing. You just get to do whatever you want. And so the software will only be as good as the people that build it.
Hey Islanders, and welcome to episode 82 of the Camano Voice. Today I continue my conversation with Tobin Fekkes. Hi, I'm Brandon Erickson, and you're listening to the Camano Voice podcast, where I interview folks around Camano Island and beyond. If you want to stay up to date on events, businesses, and even hear a little history of this area, subscribe to this podcast and share with your friends. Thanks for listening. Hey Islanders, and welcome to another episode of the Camano Voice, where we release a new episode every Tuesday. On this episode, I continue my conversation with Tobin Fekkes, so if you haven't heard part 1, go back and listen to that from last week. But this episode, we get into all of the stuff of what Tobin does on a regular basis, what his company does. His company is Lunatech Northwest, and really kind of the ins and outs of computer programming. And what I found fascinating about our conversation today is that, you know, in computer programming, something we hear a lot about. We hear a lot about the internet and computer programming and data usage and what are these programmings doing in the background. But it's not something that we intuitively understand. We just know that there's something somewhere out there that's doing stuff. And so Tobin gets into a lot of the ethical side of computer programming. The other thing that I find really fascinating is despite his whole job being focused around computer programming and system building and apps and stuff like that, he's very negative about everything technology-based. And so we get into that and why he feels that way. So anyways, without further ado, here's the rest of my conversation with Tobin Fekkes. Yeah, very cool. So what did you do upon getting back then?
Upon getting back, one of the first things I did was watch the World Cup because it was 2010, I believe. I don't know. I remember that was the first thing I did. Loved that. What did I do? I started moving furniture because it's just what my family does. We all work for a moving company in Everett, and so I moved furniture and. Not really my cup of tea, and ended up getting recommended or hired. I don't know what the right word is. The owner of the moving company, he has a sister who owns a software company in Florida, and they needed their site translated to Spanish, and they did 3D modeling and data entry, and they kind of needed somebody to translate their site, but also do techie things. So the owner of the company I was working for actually got me a different job. That was kind of weird, and he's now my neighbor. So I worked remotely for that company back in 2011, I guess, 10, 11, 12, something like that, and did translation for Spanish and data entry and 3D modeling stuff, and ended up coming to, I would drive by Camano Island Coffee Roasters almost every day when I was moving furniture, and had some friends there. And through, I don't know, 6, 8, 10 months, became friends with one of the guys that was managing the place, and he needed a technical, I don't know if there's a term for it, he just needed somebody technical, and I was technical. I didn't necessarily know software development or programming or web development or hardware stuff, but I knew enough to be dangerous. And I'm still dangerous. But they kind of had an internship type thing for kind of getting the ball rolling on some stuff back in the day. But just stopping by to say hi to friends over the course of 8 months turned into, hey, we need some help. And so that's kind of how that rolled into Camano Island Coffee Roasters, and I ended up being there for 5 years, and that's really where I learned how to do software development. I'd done technical things, hardware, software, networking, routing, web stuff, but nothing as as practical as that. Like a lot of school and college is theoretical, but when you're in the business and you have to figure things out by tomorrow or by this afternoon or by 6 days ago, it's very practical, and you learn on the job. It's trial. What do they say? Trial by fire or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's emphasis on the fire. It was that exactly every day.
It was always behind.
It was always on fire. And we were doing really cool things, actually. We were doing phenomenal things. And so, yeah, I had the opportunity there to really, I didn't go to college. I have one day of Everett Community College under my belt, and then I dropped out. But that was my college education. I spent 5 years basically being paid to learn how to code or learn how to solve business processes or problems using technology, not just software, not just hardware, but just the entire world of what's possible and how can we fix this problem. Just a huge range of problems. Mobile phones, computers, back-end office management, shipping labels, credit cards, emails, you name it. It's just like every day was different, and it was like, we don't know how to do this, but we're going to figure it out.
So, I know this is jumping ahead, so I don't want to jump too far ahead, but I know at this point you have a very good understanding of the theoretical as well. Where did that come in? Because you were learning a lot of the hands-on practical.
Oh boy, where did that come in? I don't know. That's a good question. I guess I've just always been around technology, but not been consumed by it or worshipped it. Like, I'm very pessimistic about technology and its role in our lives and how much we should use of it. But it's always been what I do. I just don't like a lot of what it does, and so I've had a different view of it. And I don't know if that gets into the theoretical, but in Mexico, I don't know, you just get to see all these uses of it, and you start to notice a lot of it's pattern matching and logic, and you start to notice patterns, whether you're in Mexico in 2008 or in, on Camano Island in 2021. There's a lot of, like, how fast does technology move? And we just kind of blindly accept it into our lives, and I think it moves so quickly that we don't stop to question things, and I like to question why we're doing what we're doing, and I don't think we're doing a lot of good with what we're doing. But I don't know if that gets into theoretical. I've just had so many opportunities between Mexico and Camano Island Coffee Roasters, and then my next job after that, to just see technology in so many different facets and start to connect dots of what we should and shouldn't do with it.
Yeah.
And a lot of it, honestly, follows creation, like things that are good for trees and plants and rivers and birds and insects. Like the way those systems work is actually how programming works too. We just can't see it because it's abstract. It's kind of hidden. You can do a lot of sketchy things with technology because you can hide things. This is literally happening this week with Robinhood and whatever else is going on. But and we can get into Uber and Postmates and Instagram and Facebook and Airbnb and WeWork, Zenefits. Go down the list. There's a lot of them. But yeah, if you stop and take a look at technology, like, I guess maybe that's the theoretical part is to, like, pull the curtains back and pay attention to where we're going and why we're doing that. Mm-hmm. And I don't like a lot of it.
Yeah. So before we continue on in your career then, could you, because it's one of those things that people hear the word computer programming, they know that it happens and they know that it does stuff on phones and with apps and stuff. How would you define and explain computer programming?
The one, the one that comes, I'll give you the short version first. The one that comes to mind is, I started teaching programming classes too, and the very first thing I say to my students, and I say it all the time, is computers are stupid. We think computers are magical and wizardry and all that, but really computers are really, really, really quite impressively stupid. Shockingly so. So I say that because computer programming The way the way I describe that or answer your question is if you ask me to get up out of my chair and we'll go walk out the front door, you say that to a human and there's like 1,000 things in there that are assumed that you don't ever have to think about explaining. Like if I say get up out of your chair and go walk out the front door, the computer would say, what do you mean by chair? What's a chair? Or get up. Like, what is up? Well, you're sitting down. Well, what is sitting down? And go walk out the door. Okay, well, what's a door and where is it? And how do I get there? It's like, well, walk straight and turn right. Well, when do I turn right? Okay, well, turn right there. Okay, when do I stop? And so you can't just say, go get up out of your chair and go walk out the front door. You have to define what a chair is. And then you start getting into that. Well, what is a chair? And like, oh, man, this is going to get exhausting. And so that's kind of how I describe your computer programming is that we take for granted how conscious we are and how much we assume and how much trust that builds, that the other person knows what we're talking about. Like there's a lot of, we operate every day off trust that's built into the system and we don't necessarily recognize it or appreciate it until it's not there. Then we're like, hey, why did that happen? Well, it's because I don't trust you. And so I get security alarms and I put passcodes on my phone and, get a garage door opener or whatever. Computer programming is breaking things down into just pure logic. And it's very fun. It's like puzzles. It's like Sudoku, Rubik's Cube, or crossword puzzles. It's very puzzle oriented, but it's pure logic. It's on, off. It's binary. It's true, false. And that's kind of the example of walking out the door, or getting up out of your chair and walking out of the door. It's just a series of true, false. When do I turn? Do I turn right here? Nope. Do I turn right here? Nope. Do I turn right here? Nope. Do I turn right here? Yes. And then they turn right, and they just keep going right until you tell them to stop. And that's a lot of programming is like, hey, I told it to do the right thing. And it's like, well, but you didn't tell it when to stop doing the right thing. And that's problematic. So computer programming is breaking things down into logic. And you can kind of go, how do I describe this? Humans are relational and computers are logical. And when we break things down into purely logical problems, we leave out the relational part of technology. And that's how we interface with it. And we have, for many years, just assumed that more technology is good. And I fundamentally disagree with that because, look around us. Because we left out the relational part. And so computer programming is the logical part, but they also don't do anything without us telling them how to do it. There's a lot of companies and services and software and particularly big companies that hide behind things and get away with things because they say, oh, well, the algorithm did that or the server did that or the machine did that. It's like, well, we told it to. Like somebody built that. Yep. They had to. So yeah. Computer programming is fun, but it also requires a lot of ethics and morality. Like the first week or two of my class is actually about ethical computer programming, like using software to help people, not using software to abuse systems or make money or hide things or whatever. Computers will be as ethical as we tell them to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So then, in your career, then you were with Camano and Coffee, and then what happened from there then?
So I worked for Camano and Coffee Roasters from 2011 to 2016, and we primarily built custom e-commerce systems. We did quite a few different migrations, how many different companies? 3, 4, 5 different companies, and just everything related to that. But also like, the marketplace, POS systems, fiber optic installs, email servers, like just anything that a company needs these days. We just kind of did as much as we could in-house. It's cheaper, but it takes longer and is more buggy. But you learn more. So that's why I say it was like a college education. It's 4 years of just like thinking that you're building something and then you're actually breaking something, and then you have to figure out how to fix it, and then that breaks two other things, and you figure out how to fix that. So, I mean, it's cheaper because you're not paying like a professional, but you're basically investing in your people to learn how to solve problems. So, yeah, did that for 5 years here, and then went to Classic Farms in Stanwood. And they do organic produce delivery from farms all around the Puget Sound. And so did the exact same thing there. Took all the knowledge of problem solving and e-commerce systems here, and they had a they had an e-commerce system from 2006, and here we were in 2016. And they were stuck. And the way that it was built by a team that was outsourced to another continent, the way it was built could never be updated. It was stuck. And, the web moves quick. And if you don't play catch up, eventually they leave you behind. And so the owner there, Tristan Classic, he hired me for a couple of years to just sit in the office and rebuild the whole software system and platform for the company. So I did that 2016, 17. We launched that platform the week before Christmas 2017, which I never recommend doing. Not only did we migrate a 10-year-old's e-commerce system, we also changed domain names, changed credit card providers, changed email providers. We did it all in one weekend. And, it wasn't a very fun experience, but I sure learned a lot. And so I was there for 5 years 5 years. Developed e-commerce systems there, and then kind of turned it into a platform, and then other companies started realizing what we had built. And so it's just it basically is it's a platform to run an entire company, whether you're doing delivery or shipping or pickup or whatever it is. And so when other people started to take notice of it, then I stepped down. I had been managing the day-to-day, like I'd been doing programming, but that kind of morphed into managing the day-to-day and doing HR and payroll and ordering produce and doing deliveries. So I stepped down at the end of 2019 to start my own company to do like software services, kind of like a web dev agency, but take this platform to other companies who need technical help, because things like Amazon and Salesforce and Microsoft and anybody who has angel investment funds can pretty much decimate industries and get rid of the small guys and just price them out. And I think the small businesses need somebody needs to build software for the small businesses, because the Amazons of the world, they just don't stop at anything. They will eat your lunch. And so I'd rather have organic produce for lunch than stuff from Amazon. And so I'd like to build software for small, farms, coffee roasters, meat delivery like we have. I want to build software for people that really appreciate it. And there's not a lot of people building software for the small guys.
Yeah.
So.
Very cool. What was that like for you, deciding to step out on your own? Did you feel like you were pretty well prepared with working with small businesses, or was it still all super new?
Well, it was actually kind of the goal early on. I mean, this is like 10 years in the making. I kind of always wanted to do this, and even subconsciously, probably really early on. But I realized at the coffee roasters that I had basically had a 5-year college education, not only into how to do software development, but how businesses work. And so, but I didn't know the people part. And so then I went and worked at the Classics for those 4 or 5 years to learn how to work with people. Tristan is incredible with employees, vendors, clients, like anybody ever meets. And so I needed to figure out the people part of software development. And not only just like software development, but like you can't run a business these days without a massive dependency on technology.
Mm-hmm.
You can't be a barista these days without knowing how to use iPad apps and various dongles and adapters and connect to Wi-Fi and restart your iPad and restart this device. Like you can't deliver packages without knowing how to use an iPad and a scanner and a QR code. And like, it doesn't matter what you do. Like, even if you're a secretary at a church, like your job is on a computer in
Right.
some way, shape, or form. And so, learning how to integrate the tech side with the people side. I'd learned the tech side, and I needed to go learn how to do the people side.
Yeah.
Because there's still, like, the best technology is relational technology. How do you get people to be relational? Like, don't use technology to eliminate people. Use technology to connect them. And there's, well, that sounds weird. That's kind of what Facebook thinks, but that's not what they do. I needed to go learn the people part of how to work with people and manage people and serve people, but also do their technical side, like how I know that your job involves all sorts of technology and credit card readers and phones, and how do I work with you and help you to work with those? How do I enable you or empower you or whatever word we want to use to make your job not suck? Because so much of...
Because I don't like technology.
Well, just so much of the rampant technology invading our lives is that in order to be cheap, we outsource it all to 6 different services, and then you're stuck managing 6 different spreadsheets, moving data back and forth, and it's like, that's not what we were designed to do. Like, just stare at a spreadsheet or an email client or whatever it is, just servicing the tech. Like, the tech should serve you, not you have to manage and figure out how all these things work. Oh, and by golly, next month the whole interface is going to change because we updated it, and now you don't know how anything works, and half of it works. So learning how to build things in such a way that the people were the priority and the tech was not.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't get that in a lot of tech because it's built for scale, not for people.
Yeah. Very cool. So then with your new company, and your company is called Lunatech, which I mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, but Lunatech Northwest, what does Lunatech Northwest do?
We service, so like, I guess it's kind of 3 things. One, I service the platform that I built at the Classics to manage an entire company, basically. So that's kind of one arm of it. The second arm is just building custom tools, like, if you are even a moderately sized e-commerce business or even in person, or pickup or shipping, however you do business, it involves tech in such a way that you have custom needs. There's so much tech and software and services and things you can subscribe to are free or cheap because they are cookie cutter, and you can get 60, 70, 80, sometimes 90% of the market to use it. As the more generic you go, the bigger your market is. Like, that's just kind of a fundamental truth. But we all do business differently, and eventually you get into these 20 or 10% of, there's not a tool that exists to do what I need it to. Mm-hmm. And so can we build it? Like, maybe we can't. I mean, we can make software do whatever we want, but whether we should is a different question. And so there are a lot of businesses that rely and depend on the quality of what they're doing and not the quantity of what they're doing. And it's worth it to spend money to build something custom to do this thing I want it to do. I want the experience to be like this.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that doesn't exist because you're the only person that ever wants that, so nobody's built that. And some businesses, that's important to them. And so that's kind of the second arm, is just doing custom tooling, and a lot of it honestly is admin side. So like, I don't really care about how websites look. I don't really care about making the coolest looking app. Actually, I care very little about that. I care about how that works for the business, because you can make some cool app or some cool website that gets a lot of sales, and that's fun and dandy. But it's probably a nightmare to actually be on the admin side of that. Fulfilling it or managing it or maintaining it, or something changes and now you got to go through all these orders. Like, there's a whole when you make a sale online, there's a whole list of things that need to happen in order.
Right.
And if they change, or if any variable on there changes, it's a nightmare for the admin to service it.
Right.
So I care far more about the admin side, the data side, the process, like how do we efficiently do all this? And I just simply don't care about the front end and making a pretty website.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of a waste of time and a lot of waste of money. So as TJ Fittis likes to say from the Camano and Coffee Roasters, you don't drink the website. Like you can put all the money you want to in the website. People don't drink the website; they drink the coffee. And so, put your money into what actually makes your product good, not just how to display your product.
Right.
So I like doing the custom tooling to make the administrative side more tolerable, because so much of that is just a pain to manage.
Right.
And then the third arm would be teaching. I like teaching not only software development, but ethics in technology management, what we allow into our lives and what we encourage and where our money goes. I like to give the example of in Washington State, if you want to be, if you want to do fingernails, like do paint nails, you have to be licensed by the state, and you have to have like 600 hours, and you have to have an apprentice, and then every year you have to get a renewal through the state of Washington to paint nails. And that was shocking to me when I first heard that, not because of the nail part, but because I'm developing software that can, at any point in time, I've got access to people's browsing history and credit cards and addresses and order history, and like everything that we do online is tracked and logged and analyzed. And here I am on Camano Island having access to all this, and no one knows or cares or checks. Like in programming and in software, there's no checks and balances. It's just like the Wild West. It's a free world. Whatever you can build, you can do. And you don't have to have it audited. You don't have to have somebody check to make sure you're doing what you say you're doing. You just get to do whatever you want. And so the software will only be as good as the people that build it. Mm-hmm. And so teaching software development is important to me to teach. Like, you can't just go around legislating or regulating everything.
Right.
You kind of have to start at the ground level and teach people to use it. Use it and build it in a way that allows people to flourish. And it will only be as good as the people. So if you start by doing the moral and ethical part of what you should and shouldn't build, and obviously that's a big bucket and probably a big gray area, but there's not really any standards. There's no legislative body of saying, what we can and can't do as programmers. Where you do, like if you want to release a car, if you want to release a medication, or you want to release food, like you have to get a food handler's permit. There's no such thing as that in programming. There is no like standard that you have to meet. It's just go build whatever you want. And that's I don't have to tell anybody that that's proven to be very dangerous.
Yeah.
Just look around.
Yeah. Well, it's one of those things that, like, when you really think about that is so, like, it's so crazy to me. Just the abilities and the things that you can do in the background, that you can tuck into this corner or that corner, that can do things without you even knowing it. And despite all that, and it's one of those things that I don't think the government, it's not that they're not aware, it's just it's such a big, it's a needle in a haystack, and the haystack is infinite.
Right.
And people are inventing new things that look like hay that they're throwing into the haystack.
Yep.
Like, no, that's just hay. All right, keep looking for the needle. Like, it's just crazy when you think of how big that really is.
Yep. Yeah, and I don't want to like point too many fingers. It's really easy to point a finger back. Hey, look at what they're doing. That's bad. Or look at what they're doing. And honestly, like, it's hard. Like, it's hard. Like, even the platform that I built, like, to have somebody else come in and actually audit it and make sure it's doing what it's doing, like, it's so complicated and so complex that you can't just simply, like, it's not like a book you open up and find the page and then, oh, yeah, that's what it's doing. It's all very abstract and layered. And so, honestly, if we had the sort of accountability or responsibility that we need, it would be too expensive and we wouldn't do it. Mm-hmm. Because you'd have to basically hire 1 or 2 or 3 people per programmer for them to just audit that it is doing what it said it's doing. And then you do that over the scope of time or the spectrum of time, and it's like software changes every day. And your apps change. I mean, how often are we updating apps on our phones or updating our phones? So to actually have a regulatory system or accountability, checks and balance system in place, software would become too expensive. Like, it's already expensive.
Right.
Like, Facebook has some of the highest paid employees. They just have the highest paid people in it's not even just Facebook, it's any tech company. But Facebook is the example because, like, when was the last time we gave Facebook money? Like, how are they paying their people the highest salaries? And all of us, well, I don't use it, but the people that use it don't really pay Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
And so you start to go down that road of like, wait, how do they make money? Oh, okay, this is interesting. And so, I don't know, to have the regulatory system in place to make sure that it's not an abusive technology, I think actually we would decide to do something else.
Yeah.
And so, anyways, yeah, that's the other part. So, my company services a platform I built to manage companies. We do custom development and then teach software development as well.
Very cool.
And especially with COVID, school isn't really what school used to be, and so teaching now seems to be a nice fit. People are looking for something else to do, and kids are looking for other ways to learn. And software development is actually really, really fun. It's critical thinking, it's pattern matching, it's logic. People always say, "Oh, I'm not going to be good at that because I'm not good at math." And I'm like, "Well, I don't remember the last time I did math either." It's logic, and math is logical, but logic isn't always mathematical.
Right.
So it's very fun. Get your brain thinking. It's it's better than playing video games, that's for sure.
Well, and I think I've talked to people all the time, and when I'm talking to parents, or if I'm talking to high schoolers, a lot of the times they're like, well, you need to go to college to get a degree, to get a job, and all these different things. And like we talked about before we started the podcast, there are fields that please go get a degree. If you're going to be a doctor, please get a degree. I'm not suggesting you should learn on Wikipedia, but there are so many avenues in today's world that you don't have to go to college. You don't have to go down this set path to have a career, to build the life you want, or to be able to do the thing you like doing, because there's so many more options now.
Yep. Yeah, I'm working with a guy. I was talking with a guy a couple weeks ago. We were working together, and he used to own a company in Seattle. He was a developer, and then he managed a team of developers. He had 100 developers at his agency in Seattle, and I was asking, I have two guys that work for me doing software development, and I was asking him, what do you look for? How do you do the hiring process? La-di-da-di-da. And I asked him about college degrees, and he's like, oh, that we don't even ask. It's not even a consideration. It doesn't matter if you do. It doesn't matter if you don't. Like, can you do what you say you can do? That's what I want to know.
Yeah.
Can you learn? Great. Like, that's the biggest thing I watch for is, like, what is your ability to learn? Because software development moves so quickly. Even me, I can't keep up with it. It moves so quickly. It isn't really about your experience or credentials or degrees. It's not about that. It's like, can you learn? If you can learn, you can do this. Because it's going to change every day. Like, no, I don't work on the same thing even in the same hour, let alone the same day. It's just constantly solving bigger and bigger logic problems.
Yeah.
And that isn't a degree. It's not like you need a degree to solve logic. It's like you need logic to solve any problem anywhere. It doesn't matter if it's nursing or you're a pastor or you're doing coffee or like it doesn't matter. It's just whatever job you go to, you're going to be problem solving. I guarantee that. And so the better you are at problem solving, the better you'll be at whatever it is you decide to do.
Yeah.
And so the degree is kind of, especially in software development, because it's so unregulated, it's just like, by the time we put a degree together, it would be outdated.
Yeah.
Like the tools that you learned there, we don't use anymore. Sorry.
Yeah. Or it's not supported anymore.
Or it's not supported anymore. Yeah, exactly. So.
All right. Very cool. Well, I like to end every podcast with some rapid fire questions. So the first one is, what purchase of $100 or less have you enjoyed the most in the last 3 months?
I really enjoyed getting you a bag of gummies for Christmas. That was well worth it. I don't know if that counts.
I really enjoyed it.
I mean, that was a hefty bag. What else did I, in the last 3 months? I don't know. I don't really. That's a Craigle.
Oh, there you go.
And everything Craigle. A Sandwich. That's up there.
Oh, there you
go. I haven't really bought anything in the last 3 months, which is saying something. It's Christmas, which I guess I didn't buy anything for Christmas. I mean, I bought a mouse a while ago because I can't really code without a mouse.
Yeah.
I don't know. I wish I had a better answer.
Yeah, well, it's kind of a hard one sometimes, especially pinning down something.
I got a pair of Patagonia socks,
Ooh.
and they've changed my life.
There you go.
Yeah. My feet are very thankful.
All right. Pretend you have a friend coming from out of town. What would the first day look like here?
We would probably go. Well, we'd probably go down to my beach because the beach is great. Then we'd probably go out to. Anacortes. There's a lot of good hikes around Deception Pass. And there's kind of a donut house there, which I'm kind of a sucker for. My parents and I have an agreement that if either of us ever go out to Anacortes, we have to bring donuts back for the rest of the family. I would do the beach. I would do a hike out by Deception Pass. I would do a sunset and some tea. There's got to be a cup of tea in there somewhere.
Yeah.
And maybe play the piano.
Nice.
Yeah. I think that's. I mean, I used to go to Seattle a lot, but I don't go to Seattle anymore.
Right.
Like, who wants to do that?
Right.
I really enjoyed going to the Gregorian chants or the monk chanting at St. Mark's Cathedral in Seattle. Used to take a bunch of people there, but COVID, so can't do that anymore.
A bunch of people with their mouths open?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm struggling to answer that because a lot of the things I would say we can't do anymore.
Yeah.
And that would be one of them.
Yeah.
Probably soccer. We'd kick a ball around somewhere.
Yeah.
And then, I don't know, make a good dinner. We'd have a bunch of organic vegetables because everybody needs more organic in their life.
Yes.
And vegetables.
And yes. All right. Who is an interesting or fascinating person in this community that I should interview next?
I just had coffee with somebody today, and I told him that I was going to answer this question today with him. Brett Reed. Or my dad. I find my dad very fascinating.
Yeah.
Oh, and I guess technically he is a business owner as of a few years ago. So that would work. Yeah, Brett Reed, Jan Fekkes.
Nice. Very cool. Interesting fact about Brett Reed, he actually married Brittany and I.
Yes, we were talking about that today.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I'd love to have them both on the podcast.
Yeah, that'd be great.
All right. Lastly, if you could have a message on a billboard right as you're driving on the island, what would that say?
Oh, that's easy. Delete Facebook.
That's a trick question because you can't actually delete your Facebook.
Yeah. Well, you can Google it.
Oh, okay.
Or, I don't know, put your phone down. Pay attention to the trees. Look at more trees, less phone.
There you go. More trees, less phone.
More trees, less phone. I like that bumper sticker. Can we have that in the marketplace?
Yeah, we can get that.
Okay, sweet.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today.
You are very welcome. This has been wonderful.
All right. And Islanders, I will talk to you on the next one.
Well, a big thank you to Tobin Fekkes for joining me on the podcast today, and thank you for listening. If you haven't already, be sure to rate, review, and subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast platform. It really helps us be found by other Islanders like yourself. And for more information on this episode, you can go to CamanoCommons.com/EP82. That's CamanoCommons.com/EP82. Thanks for listening, and see you next time.